FC.
I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? It is November Tango 5. Tango Mike, my name is Tony, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for the net. With priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro words break, break, followed by their call sign. Is there anyone out there with emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. Tonight, that's me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of their transmissions. That's how I know you're done talking. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or the Echolink node number 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links with awesome streams are available online. Go to W5FC.org right now for the complete list of all of our stream providers, and please remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You do not need to be a member of this or any amateur radio club to participate. It is, of course, structured in several parts. Depending on our schedule tonight, we may not get to all of them, but we'll do our best and we'll try to have fun. We have general announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, What's Up, Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, recent astronomical discoveries, space exploration and space history, visible satellite passes over the next couple of days, and astronomical Q&A. Let's not forget the 73 round. I like that part. It's a great chance for final comments and questions. And remember, all amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited and encouraged to check in. So let's get started with short time check-ins. Short time check-ins. If you'd like to show your support for the net, but you have to go soon, now is your time. Short time check-ins, please come now with your call sign phonetically, name, and location. I'm gratified that everyone wants to go the duration. Do we have any short-time check-ins? Last call for short-time check-ins. Those who want to check in but have to go soon, please come now with your call signed phonetically, name, and location. I guess we're all going the distance, maybe even going for speed. Anyone who'd like to check in, please come now with your call signed phonetically, name, and location.
Whiskey Tango 9 Victor, Michael in Plano.
I know there's more of us out there. I heard Whiskey 9, Tango Victor, Michael in Plano, and Kilo Echo 5, India, Charlie X-Ray. That was at least a double, maybe a triple or more from Tom in Louisville. Any other RF check-ins at this time, please come now with your call signed phonetically, name, and location.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz, Mesquite, USA.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill and Irving. I believe you got WT9V's call incorrect.
I might have. I heard at least 2 whiskeys in there, but I'm sleepy. I heard KE5I6, KE5JHA, and N5BB. 9 Victor, Michael in Plano. What's your correct call, please?
I apologize. I had a bit of a brain fart at the beginning. It is Whiskey Tango 9 Victor. Thank you very much, sir.
Oh, if you only have 1 brain fart, you're ahead of me. Late, and I'm Tony, NT5TM. Do we have anyone else checking in tonight? Anyone else checking in to Skynet? Please come now with your call sign phonetically, name, and location.
This is Whiskey 105, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda N. DeSoto.
Yes.
November 5, Whiskey Oscar India, William and Alan.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
November 6th, November Charlie Tango, Chuck and Bedford.
Hey, I've got Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, November 5, Whiskey Oscar India, Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, and November 6, November Charlie Tango. Thank you all for checking in. Before I move on, any other RF check-ins? Anyone else who'd like to join us over the radio waves, please come now with your call sign, phonetically, name, and location.
Is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James, and Carrollton.
All right, I've got Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton. And let me pop over to Echolink here. We have a lot of folks in Echolink, and I don't know if they've all checked in. The biggest thing I see that's missing is JJ, N5IMS, November 5, India Mike Sierra. You are there and active on Echolink, but you haven't checked in on voice, so I'm going to mark you as checked in. Do we have any other Echolink stations who'd like to join us? Any other Echolink check-ins? Please come now by voice or chat.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo, Zulu, Whiskey, J, Near Weatherford.
This is November 5, Yankee, Echo Oscar, Stephen, San Antonio.
Hey, I see Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, November 5, Yankee Echo Oscar. Jay and Stephen, thank you for checking in. I notice a couple of other folks now as I carefully go through the list. Kilo India 5, Foxtrot Kilo Sierra, Gabriel, Kilo 6, Zulu Uniform Bravo, Elaine, and Kilo 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey, John. If any of you would like to check in by voice, please come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location.
Kilo India 5, Foxtrot Kilo Sierra, Gabriel, and Justin.
Hey, Gabriel, thank you for checking in from Justin. And Chaz, it's too late. I've already checked you in. No matter how many times you say me, it's too late. I won't let you off the hook. You're already on the list. Okay, anyone else by any means? Anyone by any means before we move on? This is NT5TM calling for check-ins for Skynet. Please come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location. All right, do we have anyone who would like to bring a general announcement to the net? This is a general announcement of interest to any licensed ham. If you have such an announcement, please come now with your call signed phonetically. E5ICX, Tom, go ahead.
I just wanted to remind everyone, and you may have this announcement as well, that in 2 weeks, this Saturday is July 20th. It is the anniversary, the 50th anniversary of man landing on the moon. And the Dallas Amateur Radio Club will be at the Frontiers of Flight Museum. That's in Dallas at Love Field, celebrating Moon Day, which coincides, interestingly, on the exact day of landing on the moon. So this should be an exciting event. We will be there, as well as AMSAT. We'll be sharing a table in the museum, in the main gallery area, and we'll be talking to kids about, and their parents, hopefully, about amateur radio and about radio used in space. So be ready. Do your studying on UHF communications, VHF communications, and all that as well. So we look forward to having you come by. If you'd like to join us and help out at the table, we would like to have you there. So if you'd like to send an email to, at this point, just send an email to me, Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray, KE5ICX @yahoo.com, and then I'll make sure that it's forwarded on. We'll have some opportunities to sign up on times if you're interested. The good news is we'll get you into the museum for free. Free! That's right, free, to help out. It's a very fun event. We've done this now for about 8 years, and I think that if you've never done this event, it's an easy one. Just talking to folks, you also get a chance to tour the museum and see all the exhibitors who are there. That will be, we'll need folks to show up around 9 o'clock and then follow through until about 5 p.m. That's usually strike time. We'll have set up starting around probably 8 to 9 o'clock. That's when people start to arrive, and then we'll go ahead and set up. So we'll have a go station there and some other items to pass out to the kids. So that's it from me. Now, this is at the Frontiers of Flight Museum at Love Field 2 weeks from today. This is KE5ICX.
Hey, Tom. Yes, this is in the TechNet announcements post, just briefly, but we don't have too many details yet. You don't really have to stay from 9 all the way to 5, although many of the coolest people do. If you can come out for just part of the day to help get kids interested in space communications, that's fine too. This is a fun event. It's like having caffeine injected intravenously because there's all these bouncy, excited, energetic kids who want to learn stuff, running around like crazy all the time, and you just can't help but absorb some of the energy. If you need a jolt or you love sharing amateur radio, send an email to KE5ICX @yahoo.com and offer to volunteer for July 20th, Moon Day, out at the Frontiers of Flight Museum. We do also have a lecture and lab event this month. We're going to be, I don't know if we'll be building, but we're sure going to be playing with a special little UPS, an uninterruptible power supply meant to help you with small items like a Raspberry Pi, and that's going to be on the 4th Saturday, the 27th. And there's more details at w5sc.org about the exact location. It's usually about 10 to 3, and of course we're at the Dallas Medical Center at Webb Chapel and LBJ. And finally, we have Nets. This is the night of Nets, but there are always more coming up. Tonight we have the Afterglow movie discussion. We're going to be talking about the 1980 Sleep Aid, Somewhere in Time, starring, amazingly, Christopher Reeve. Yes, he went from Superman to Ambien in just one film. We also have the Meeting on the Air coming up tomorrow night at 7 p.m. and a Racy's Training Net coming up on this repeater at 8 p.m. This Monday is MCOM 101. You don't have to be an Aries or Racy's member. You just have to like public service communications. We're going to talk about that Monday the 8th. This coming Monday at 7 p.m. on this repeater. Anyone have any questions about our upcoming Nets or any of these announcements? We do, of course, have lots of nets. Every Monday night is a different net. And I do also want to mention that if you're here, we have a couple of AMSAT nets that are open to interested Dallas residents. Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time, we have an Echolink net based in Houston, Texas. If you go to amsetnet.com, you can find a live audio link. This is 8 p.m. Central on Tuesday night. Prefer an RF net, we have a local AMSAT net every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Every single Wednesday at 9 on the Arlington repeater, 147140, PL tone 110.9, just like this one. There's pretty much all the announcements except for Tom's exciting Afterglow movie introduction. Tom, please go ahead and tell us more about the Afterglow movie.
Thank you, Tony. My 30 seconds of fame. For tonight's Afterglow movie info, Richard Collier was a successful playwright. Everyone loved his plays. He was a Broadway darling. Celebrations with the cast and crew for his new play, Somewhere in Space-Time. Except today was a little different. An elderly woman approached him and handed him a pocket watch, exclaiming, "You dropped this in 1912 and your play sucks. You can't hold a candle to Richard Matheson." Suddenly, Collier decided he needed some time off and decided to drive his sports car to Mackinac Island. Only one problem. There's no bridge or boat could transport him and his car there. Oh well, it's just a movie. Join us for the time travel story, Ambien included, Somewhere in Time, tonight at 10:30. KE5ICX, back to net.
Thank you, Tom. Free Ambien is a pretty good deal for any net. And remember that you can keep up with all the DARC events, nets, and activities by going to w5fc.org. We've even got a really neat field day video starring, among other people, Tom. So head on out there and see what an awesome field day we had. Maybe you missed it. Don't miss it next year because it's going to be even more awesome. Do we have anyone else who'd like to join us? I'm NT5TM, but if you'd like to check in, please come out with your call sign phonetically, name and location. Do we have anyone with news of Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, especially where and when you can look through a telescope? If that's you, please come now with your call sign phonetically.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha.
5JHA. Chaz, go ahead.
Johnny. You know, I have a question. Does Tom write these intros to the movies himself? Maybe Tom should write his own movie script. Oh, okay. Back to the topic at hand. The Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas has meetings on a regular basis on the fourth Friday of each month. Okay. I know I've said this many times. It's actually 10 months out of the year. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. But in November, it's the third Friday, because if it's the fourth Friday, that would be right after Thanksgiving. That's just weird. Nobody would probably show up. They'd still be eating turkey for leftovers. And in December, there's usually some sort of activity going on that precludes the meeting. So 10 months out of the year, on the fourth Friday of the month, the Texas Astronomical Society has meetings at UT Dallas, right on Campbell Road. So make sure you find out what the topic is, and I can tell you the topic in just a moment. On July the 26th at 7:30 is when the next meeting will be, and the featured speaker is Fred Bushy. He is a professor at Brookhaven College. He's actually one of the original scientists that analyzed the Apollo moon rock. So this will be fun. He's a really fun person to listen to and a great instructor. So I think it would be a nice thing to do is to Go listen to him at the Texas Astronomical Society meeting. Oh, also, the Texas Astronomical Society has observing sessions somewhere around the Metroplex. On the first Saturday of each month, Stargazer Star Parties at Spring Park in Garland. I don't think that happened tonight with the rain coming through. And on the second Saturday is Starfest at Frisco, at the Frisco Commons Park in Frisco. Kind of hard to get a signal from there to here and back again. So that might not be a good time to try to radio communicate between here and Frisco. And then the third Saturday is Cedar Hill Starbolt at J.W. Williams Park in Cedar Hill. And the fourth Saturday is Stars on the Rock, the Shores Park in Rockwall. And the fifth Saturday, and that happens about 4 times a year. Well, when we have a fifth Saturday, then that is held at the DARC site for the Texas Astronomical Society up in Oklahoma. Okay, so if you need some more information about the Texas Astronomical Society, sign on to the website, texasastro.org. Make sure you park in the correct parking lot when you go to the meetings, because otherwise you might get a ticket. Does anybody need any fill or have any questions about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas? Okay, back to night control. Tony, thank you so much. KF5JHA.
Chaz, this is NT5TM Tony. Next I'll call on N5BB. Bill, do you have any National Space Society events to tell us about?
This is N5BB with the National Space Society. And I have nearly too many events to describe, so I'll try to go through them quickly. Most of these are driven, of course, by the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11. So last weekend we had 2 events. Space Day at the South Irving Public Library and Asteroid Day at the Perot Museum in downtown Dallas. I participated in both of these public outreach events. Then the National Space Society of North Texas has 2 events let me get them right here. There's so many of these. There is an event on a week from today on July the 13th at the Weatherford Public Library. There's also an event at the Plano Library, which I improperly put on my calendar, but that, I believe, is next Saturday also. As well as the Dallas Races Council meeting and many, many other things going on simultaneously a week from today. And then the July meeting of the National Space Society is on Sunday, July the 14th, 3:30 p.m. It will be at the Spring Creek Barbecue in Irving, Highway 183 and Beltline. Speaker will be Tom Scheffler, N5HYP, who also often checks in here. And Tom will be giving a presentation on amateur radio in space. He will have the Fox Beta spacecraft with him, as well as some other items. So that is the 14th of July, Sunday afternoon. Then the National Space Society is participating in an event at the Fort Worth Astronomical Society on the 16th of July, which is a Tuesday. This is in the Health Center on Camp Billy Boulevard. And then there's another event at the Fort Worth Museum of Science and History on Friday, July the 19th, called Moonwalk. And then we have Moon Day on the 20th of July, where I've got 3 different organizations I'm a member of participating at the same place in the same time. So that's all the events for July. There's too many of them. In 5BB.
Hey, Bill, thank you very much for that National Space Society news, not moves. This is NP5TM. Do we have anyone out there who'd like to join us? Anyone who'd like to check in? Please come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location. Okay, do we have anyone with a question about any of the announcements so far? Anyone with a question about anything so far? Please come now with your call sign phonetically. Right, it's time for drama. On June 30th, 1908, something terrible happened in the frozen waste of Siberia. At one eyewitness, at breakfast time I was sitting by the house of an Avro trading post facing north. I suddenly saw that directly to the north, over Uncle's Tunguska Road, the sky split in two and fire appeared high and wide over the forest. The split in the sky grew larger and the entire northern side was covered with fire. At that moment I became so hot that I couldn't bear it, as if my shirt was on fire. From the northern side where the fire was came strong heat. I wanted to tear off my shirt and throw it down, but then the sky shut closed and a strong thump sounded and I was thrown for a few meters. I lost my senses for a moment, but then my wife ran out and led me to the house. After that, such noise came as if rocks were falling or cannons were firing. The earth shook, and when I was on the ground I pressed my head down, fearing rocks would smash it. When the sky opened up, hot wind raced between the houses, like from cannons, which left traces in the ground like pathways, and it damaged some crops. Later we saw that many windows were shattered, and in the barn, a part of the iron lock snapped. It means that an inactive comet or small asteroid entered our atmosphere and exploded well above the ground. Because of the extreme remoteness of the event, it wasn't until 1927 that a scientific expedition reached the site of the event, led by meteor collection curator and mineralogist Leonid Kulik. This is actually his second attempt. The first expedition had to turn back in 1921. Getting out into Soviet Siberia in an age before roads or the Trans-Siberian Railroad was extremely difficult. Kulik circled the region where the trees had been felled, and he became convinced that they were all turned with their roots to the center of an enormous explosion. However, although he tried to search, he did not find any meteorite fragments from the impact. All of his expeditions lacked the equipment for major excavations, but they did try to search the surface. Early estimates of the energy from this cataclysmic airburst ranged from 10 to 15 megatons of TNT, up to 30 megatons of TNT, depending on the exact height at which the burst took place. However, modern supercomputer calculations that include the effect of the object's forward momentum find that energy was focused downward that would have been the case for a simple nuclear explosion, and that they estimate the airburst might have been as little as 3 to 5 megatons. Of course, there's a lot of uncertainty going from these old decades past eyewitness accounts, and so some computer models still say 30 megatons. So we don't know. It was big. It was cataclysmic. There was a blast that went out over a long distance. Lots of reindeer were killed. Probably no people. Maybe one or two were hit by falling debris and died. But let's imagine that this event took place over a major city, say in November of 1962 instead of June of 1908. results then could have been catastrophic for world civilization. A superpower with a 30 megaton blast going off over perhaps its capital city would have feared itself attacked, and it would have responded, and that would have triggered a response from the other side. A flash of light could have caused the end of civilization. Of course, this is not the only close call our planet had. Recently, the Chelyabinsk event back in 2013 probably only had a yield of about 550 kilotons. Only. It's still enough to blow out more than 1 million windows and injure at least several hundred and probably as many as 1,000 people with flying glass. Close calls like this, which could accidentally trick us into destroying ourselves or kill a lot of people, are why NASA has an asteroid threat assessment project and a planetary defense coordination office, and why Congress, way back in 1998, charged NASA with finding 90% of near-Earth asteroids of 1 kilometer size or greater. This was a mission NASA did manage to fulfill by 2010. The Tunguska event object and the Chelyabinsk meteor were probably much smaller than that. Chelyabinsk was probably only about the size of a 5-story building. In fact, though NASA's predictions of how often a large asteroid impacts the Earth have been getting more optimistic. Kind of not what you usually hear in the modern world of environmental alarm, but optimism is kind of the strain of the day. It's now thought that these locally devastating impacts happen once every few thousand years, not once every century or two. Of course, these are averages. There's not a calendar. They don't count down until the scheduled time for the next comet. It's really hard to draw conclusions from the very limited data we have, and continuing vigilance is important. That's why scientists and artists have created a couple of things. International Asteroid Day, which is celebrated every year on June 30th, the day of the Tunguska event, and the B612 Foundation, named for the asteroid where the Little Prince lives. Both the event and the group are there to encourage people to learn more about the dangers of asteroids, as well as their importance to science and the geology of Earth, as well as the future value of asteroids as resources for future human space explorers. There are some great links up at w5fc.org. Some of these are pretty hard to read. It's kind of neat how the Chelyabinsk meteor was one of the best documented large meteors in recent histories. Cell phones are common and dash cams are getting more and more popular, so there turns out to be a lot more footage than there could possibly have been in 1908, even had there been a cinematographer right there. On a daily basis, about 100 tons of interplanetary material drifts down to the Earth's surface every day. Wait, that's redundant. Every day, daily basis, it's a heavy base, 100 tons. Most of the smallest interplanetary particles that reach our surface are tiny. They're released by comets as their ices are vaporized in our solar system. The vast majority of larger material originates from collisions of asteroids that happened a long time ago. Asteroids are pretty tame nowadays, but once upon a time, they collided with each other more often. Research is actively underway to find the best way to deflect an asteroid. Only a tiny change in velocity, a few millimeters per second, would be enough to keep an asteroid from impacting the Earth. And that could be accomplished in a variety of ways. For example, a large nuclear explosion some distance away from the asteroid could heat its surface, causing a puff of vapor to be emitted. The vapor would push back on the asteroid and slow it slightly. Or perhaps we could attach a large solar sail to the asteroid to let the pressure of the sun slow it. Or perhaps we could, position a very heavy satellite with weights on it and let the tiny amount of gravity drag the asteroid off course. These things all sound not too exciting, honestly. No Armageddon, no oil drillers with giant thermonuclear weapons in space, and there's a good reason for that. Blowing up a hazardous asteroid would in fact make it worse. All the fragments would still have the same total energy of the original impactor, but there would be too many of them to keep track of or do anything about. breaking the asteroid into pieces is a bad idea. Don't listen to Hollywood. Michael Bay is not an astronomer. I'd like to encourage you to learn more about International Asteroid Day and the Tunguska Impactor. You can find a link at w5fc.org, or if you search for Tunguska Revisited NASA Optimism, you can find out a neat story that summarizes the latest findings on large impactors. You could head over to asteroidday.org, asteroidday.org, to learn more about International Asteroid Day. There's a good story up at earthsky.org. And you could head over to JPL at cneos.jpl.nasa.gov. What crazy word did I just say? CNEOS, Charlie, November, Echo, Oscar, Sierra. It stands for the Center for Near-Earth Object Studies. Charlie, November, Echo, Oscar, Sierra, .jpl.nasa.gov. So, the Earth has had a couple of near misses, and one of the biggest ones happened back on June 30th, 1908. Thank you for listening, and I really do hope you go out there and learn more. All those newspaper headlines you see with big capital letters, British newspapers are especially bad about that. A giant asteroid will pass only 15 million miles from the Earth. They never give as much emphasis to that long-distance part. This is NT5TM. Do we have anyone out there waiting to join us? Anyone who'd like to check in, please come now with your call sign phonetically, or you can use Echolink voice or chat.
This is November 5 Alpha Bravo Alpha, Andre and Wiley.
N5ABA, thank you very much for checking in. Do we have anyone with questions about that presentation before we move on? If you've got a question, please come now with your call sign phonetically. Hey, let's move ahead. Chaz, KF5JHA, what's up?
Thank you, Tony. Good evening, everyone. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree is in astrophysics, and I work at Brookhaven Community College, and we call this segment of Skynet What's Up. Remember that Skynet is not only available on the Dallas repeater 146.88 megahertz with a private line tone of 110.9, but also available to hams across the world via Echolink, and there's several people on Echolink right now. And most weeks, Skynet also has a video component, too. You can find the video links at the w5fc.org website. I know we've already said that before. So, but with radio, Echolink, and video, I say that Skynet is in 3D. By the way, what goes on in the chat window of Echolink might not have anything to do with what's happening on the video and might not have anything to do with what's going on that we're talking about on the air. So to get the full 3D version of Skynet, you must be monitoring all three areas all at once. Okay, about the time you were eating things from off the grill on July 4th, it happened. You know, that was a doggone good thing to do, is eat hot dogs. Doggone good. Okay, I told you I was going to have to add some more jokes to this. No, not the earthquake in California that occurred earlier on July 4th, around 12:34 p.m. Central Daylight Time. But what I'm talking about is what happened a few hours later on July 4th at 5:11 p.m. Central Daylight Time. The Earth was at aphelion. That is the point in the Earth's orbit that is furthest from the Sun. How close the Earth is to the Sun has very little to do with the seasons on the Earth because the change in distance is relatively small percentage-wise. And you might be able to see that in the graphics if you're looking at the video version. On the other hand, Mercury and Pluto are much more extreme in their close point to the sun, called perihelion, compared to their distant point in the sun, from the sun, called aphelion. In fact, Pluto moves so much closer to the sun in its orbit during perihelion that it is closer to the sun than the planet Neptune for several years. Between February 7th, 1979 and February 11th, 1999, Pluto was closer to the sun than Neptune. During this close approach to the sun, Pluto gained an atmosphere that persists to this day. The ices on the surface of Pluto warmed to the point that they turned directly from ice into gas. We call that sublimation. This resulted in the thin atmosphere that is around Pluto right now. And I am KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Tonight, if you can see it, I don't know if the clouds have cleared, I'm inside, but tonight the moon is at waxing crescent phase and is visible in the western evening sky. The moon was new on July the 2nd. On July the 3rd, the very thin crescent moon was just below Mars and Mercury in the evening sky. On July the 4th, the moon was well above Mars and Mercury. It was a beautiful sight in the western sky while I was watching fireworks. The moon will be at its first quarter phase on July the 9th, and also on July the 9th, the star Spica will be just below and to the right of the moon. Tonight, on July the 6th, 2019, around 9:20 p.m., that was about 20 minutes ago, and it'll be the same time for you tomorrow night. Hopefully it'll be clear then. You may see very low in the western sky 4 different objects. The leftmost object will be the planet Mercury. Just to the right and slightly higher, you'll see Mars. And to the right of Mars is the star Pollux. And to the right of Pollux, you'll see the star Castor. So from left to right, Mercury, Mars, Pollux, and Castor. Remember that a couple of weeks ago on June the 18th, Mars and Mercury were less than a degree apart. In fact, about 1/5 of a degree apart. But now they're about 4 degrees apart from each other. On July the 9th, Saturn is at opposition, which means it is opposite in the sky from the sun. So Saturn will rise when the sun sets, and Saturn will set when the sun rises. On July the 13th, the moon and Jupiter will be in conjunction. In other words, they'll be next to each other. And on the night of July the 15th, 16th, the moon and Saturn will be in conjunction. I don't think he's on the air, but I'm still going to do this anyway. And this is for Mike, KG5P. Also, he seems to like eclipses. Also, on July the 16th, there will be a partial eclipse of the moon, but this is a lunar eclipse that's not visible from here in North America, but rather than Africa, Europe, Eastern Asia. About 65% of the moon will travel into the darker part of the Earth's shadow called the umbra. Again, we won't see that here. Back to tonight's sky. Other than the moon, the dominant object in the sky tonight will be Jupiter, which is about 1/3 of the way up in the southern sky around 10 p.m., and that means in just a few minutes. Again, I hope it's clearing off. Jupiter is located in the 13th constellation of the zodiac, Ophiuchus, the snake handler. While astrologers only recognize 12 zodiacal constellations, astronomers use the fact that there is another constellation, Ophiuchus, that the moon, the sun, and the planets travel through. To the right of Jupiter is the bright star Antares. Antares represents the heart of Scorpius the Scorpion. About 15 degrees high in the southeastern sky is the dim planet Saturn. Saturn is located in the constellation of Sagittarius. The Archer, which is also a centaur, a half-human, half-horse creature. That's just kind of a strange thing. Most people see Sagittarius as a teapot. Saturn is just to the upper left of the handle of the teapot. You know, if music were allowed, I might even sing I'm a Little Teapot right now, but since that's not allowed on this frequency, I guess I can't do that. And I am KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. The last half of the year is the time for watching meteors in the sky. On the night of July the 27th and 28th, we will have the peak viewing for not one, not two, but actually 3 meteor showers. With only a thin crescent moon in the morning sky to get in your way of seeing these, you might see a couple of dozen of meteors in the sky from one of the 3 meteor showers in the hour just before dawn. These 3 meteor showers are called the Alpha Capricornids, the Southern Delta Aquarids, and the July Gamma Draconids. They're named after the constellations they appear to come from. More about that later. I'll probably talk more about meteors in the sometime in August time frame around the Perseid meteor shower. Details about each one of these meteor showers can be found on the International Meteor Organization website, www.imo.net, or the American Meteor Society website, which is www.amsmeteors.org. Okay, I'm going to tell a joke. If you're not on the video version of this, you'll see this joke later on the video version, but I'll tell this now. So, can you get really cleaned up from a good meteor shower? Okay, all right. Next, on July the 31st from 4:22 until 5:22 Central Daylight Time, that would be PM, the moon will occult Venus. This is when the moon will block out our view from Venus in the sky. This is not just during the day, but it's also very close to the sun. The moon of Venus will only be about 5 degrees away from the sun. So if you do not know what you are doing, you should not try to view this event, but rather find an online website that might be hosting live images, and I'll see if you can find one of those between now and the next Skynet, or before the event happens. Or you can also take a look at the pics that advanced amateurs and professionals have after the event. Now, further down the road, 4 months from now, on November the 11th, 2019, we will have the next transit of Mercury visible in North Texas. A transit of Mercury is when Mercury goes between us and the sun. We'll see the disk of Mercury against the sun. After the November 11th transit, the next transit of Mercury visible in North America won't occur until May the 7th, 2049. So if you don't see the one on November 11th of this year, it'll be a long time. The Texas Astronomical Society and Brookhaven College are hosting an observing session on November 11th, 2019 to see this transit of Mercury. We've made no plans for the May 7th, 2049 transit yet. Now, before I end, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill or any information I've talked about? Or do you just have a general question on astronomy? I don't know everything, but I might know the answer to your question or might be able to direct you in the right location. Come now with your call sign if you have a question.
Kilo 5 Juliet Delta Whiskey.
We've got 2 of them. John in Norman, Oklahoma. Please come now. What is your question?
Yeah, Chaz, thanks for a good report there. Got a question. I was kind of bored, I guess. I was online, and they got one of those little QA things you can do to test your IQ or your knowledge or whatever. And one of them was it asked a question about when it was winter in the northern hemisphere, what is the southern hemisphere having? Well, I answered winter, of course, because I thought all the Earth seasons were named after or per the calendar-based season thing in the northern hemisphere, where roughly 90% of the Earth's population lives. So, actually, is it your opinion? Was I wrong, or do they actually call it? I've never heard anybody in the southern hemisphere call it summer when we have our winter. I thought everybody had winter at the same time. That's my question. K5JDW.
John, that's an excellent question. In fact, the distance from the sun, I think I said this earlier, has very little to do with the seasons here on the Earth. It actually has to do with the tilt of the Earth. That's what causes the seasons. When the northern hemisphere is tilted more toward the sun, that's what's happening right now, we get more direct rays here in the northern hemisphere, and so that's when we have summer. At that point, the southern hemisphere have indirect rays coming from the sun. It's at a much lower angle in the sky, and they have wintertime. Vice versa, in 6 months from now, when we have indirect rays coming from the sun in December, in January, and February, well, we have winter, but the southern hemisphere have more direct rays, and so they actually have summertime there. So the seasons are exactly opposite in the southern and northern hemisphere. Now, what's kind of interesting is in the tropics, they don't really have summer and winter. They usually have a rainy season and a drier season, but they don't experience the same extremes. That's between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer. In the tropics area, that's what I'm talking about, that really don't have much in seasons, change of temperature, but they have changes in weather with the rainfall. So, John, did I answer your question?
Well, no, actually, that is all good background to lead up to the answer. I understand that we only change distance to the sun, what, 1.5%, something like that, and it's the logistics of the Earth, the angle of the Earth, of course, the incident angle that's causing our seasons. But what I'm asking is, I thought when we experienced winter, it was Earth winter, like winter was in the December, just because we're having winter-type conditions in the northern hemisphere. And even though they're experiencing, the southern hemisphere has turned more toward the sun, they're experiencing their warmer climate, it's still not called summer. I thought it was still called winter all over the Earth. That was my question.
The winter in the northern hemisphere is, the December, January, February time frame. And during that time frame, they do call it summer in Australia, and it is a summer condition. So, yeah, we're just northern-centric. What happens is there's more land masses in the northern hemisphere, so that's why we are sort of in that frame, and a lot of history from our textbooks and whatnot have European history, Asian history, and whatnot, and we talk about the information coming from the northern hemisphere. So the northern hemisphere, we're northern-centric, I guess is what I'm saying. So we don't hear much about the southern hemisphere. I understand they even make globes of the Earth that look like they're upside down compared to what we're used to, with the southern pole, the South Pole on top. That's interesting. Okay, did that answer your question, John?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I know some people in New Zealand, and they don't differentiate it, so I don't know. I guess that's good. Thanks. K5 JDW.
Thank you, John. I think ICX, Tom, you had a question as well. Please come now.
Yeah, I do have a question. This past week we had a solar eclipse. I think it was Brazil, am I right? I watched it on TV because I couldn't go to Brazil to go see it. But I did notice, I was going to give an expanded thing on Heavens-Above, heavensabove.com, and they have a mention here of solar eclipses. And one of the things, I don't know if this is something that they did or what, but there's no explanation. I understand there's a partial, annular, and total eclipse, but they also use the term hybrid. Does that make any sense to you? KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, that actually does make sense to me. What happens is that the Earth and the Moon have shadows. And when the Moon is so far away from the Earth, that it only blocks part of the sun, not completely the entire sun, then if we're standing in the right location, the moon will sort of cover the center part of the sun, and we'll see a ring of sun around the moon. It's called an annular solar eclipse. So the moon's not close enough to us to block out all of the sun. When it's a little bit closer, it can block out all of the sun. Now, it's a very tight position where when part of the Earth will only see an annular eclipse, but because it's on the edge of the Earth, it'll be an annular eclipse. As the moon goes across the sun, of course, that part of the Earth that's facing toward the moon is a little bit closer to the moon. The moon can block out the entire sun as visible from the Earth, and you'll have a brief, very brief, total solar eclipse. So we call that a hybrid, where you can actually have an annular eclipse and a total eclipse in the same eclipse, but on different parts of the Earth during that period of time. It's an unusual situation. It doesn't happen very often, but yeah, hybrid eclipses are something that occur. Tom, did I answer your question?
Yes, I now know. It's a hybrid, just like it says. Annular and total. Thanks very much, KE5ICX.
N5BB.
NT5TM. Hello?
Double, are you calling me? This is N5BB.
I was actually just hoping we could get moving with the net, so if you have a question, please make it very, very short.
Well, just a comment. John seemed like he was commenting about New Zealand not having summer. I'm looking at a website that says Discover Summer in New Zealand. Opposite of the northern hemisphere, New Zealand's balmy summer season runs from December to February. That's all my comment. N5BB clear.
Yep, and New Zealand is very coastal. It's very thin, both islands, and so they're going to have just less seasonal extremes than we do here on the big continents of Europe and Asia and North and South America. KF5JHA, I'll let you wrap your section. Move on.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, I had actually a former boss of mine that went down there in the wintertime, and she had fun hang gliding in December, so that's kind of interesting. Okay, this is KF5JHA, and that's all for this week's What's Up on Skynet. Back to you, Tony, our net control.
Thank you. This is NT5TM for the Saturday Night Skynet. Do we have anyone waiting to join us? Anyone who'd like to check in, please come now with your call sign, phonetically name and location.
Is Angus, name is Steve, and I'm checking in.
I heard Ted and somebody else. Ted, could I get your complete call, please, just for fun?
Yes, this is WV4MFI, Whiskey, Bravo, number 4, Mike, Foxtrot, India, Dallas, low power.
Thank you, sir. No one can ever get that wrong. And there was somebody else. Was there somebody else? Please try again.
This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Juliet, Tango. Whiskey 5, Golf, Juliet, Tango. Name is Gene, and I'm from Carrollton. I'm on low power.
Thank you for that check-in from Carrollton. This is NT5TM, and I'll now call on WB5OZL for your news of recent astronomical discoveries.
This is WB50ZL. First article is entitled Fast Radio Burst Pinpointed to Distant Galaxy. Fast radio bursts, FRBs, are among the most enigmatic and powerful events in the around 80 of these events, intensely bright millisecond-long bursts of radio waves coming from beyond our galaxy have been witnessed. So causes remain unknown. In a rare feat, researchers at Caltech's Owens Valley Radio Observatory, OVRO, had now caught a new burst called FRB 190523, and together with the WMKEC Observatory in Hawaii, have pinpointed its origins to a galaxy 7.9 billion years away. Light years away. Identifying the galaxies from which these radio bursts erupt is a critical step towards solving the mystery of what triggers them. A paper about the discovery appears online June 2nd in Nature. Sorry, dropped the mic. I know that doesn't happen to anybody else. Before this new discovery, only one other burst called FRB 1102 had been localized to a host galaxy. FRB 121102 was reported in 2014, and then later in 2017 was pinpointed to a galaxy lying 3 billion light years away. Recently, a second localized FRB was announced on June 27th, 2019, called FRB 180924. This burst was discovered by T using the Australian Square Kilometre Array Pathfinder and traced to a galaxy about 4 billion light years away. FRB 121102 was easiest to find because it continues to burst every few weeks. Most FRBs, however, including the Australian and OVRO finds, just go off once, making the job of finding their host galaxies harder. Finding the locations of the one-off FRBs is challenging because it requires a radio telescope that can both discover these extremely short events and locate them with the resolving power of a mile-wide radio dish, says Vikram Ravi, a new assistant professor of astronomy at Caltech who works with the radio telescopes at OVRO, which is situated east of the Sierra Nevada mountains in California. At OVRO, we built a new array of 10 4.5-meter dishes that collectively act like a mile-wide dish to cover an area of the sky the size of 150 full moons, he said. To do this, a powerful digital system ingests and processes an amount of data equivalent to a DVD every second. The new OVRO instrument is called the Deep Synoptic Array -10, with the 10 referring to the number of dishes. This array serves as a stepping stone for the planned Deep Synoptic Array, DSA, funded by the National Space Science Foundation, NSF, which, when completed by 2021, will ultimately consist of 110 radio dishes. The DSA is expected to discover and localize more than 100 FRBs every year, said Richard Barvanis, program director at the NSF for the Mid-Scale Innovations Program, which is funding the construction of the DSA. Astronomers have been chasing FRBs for a decade now. We're finally drawing a bead on them with new instruments like DSA-10 and eventually the full DSA. Now we have a chance of figuring out just what these exotic objects might be. The new observations show that the host galaxy for FRB 190523 is similar to our Milky Way. This is a surprise because the previously located FRB 121102 originates from a dwarf galaxy that is forming stars more than 100 times faster than the Milky Way. This finding tells us that every galaxy, even a run-of-the-mill galaxy like our Milky Way, can generate an FRB, says Ravi. The discovery also suggests that a leading theory for what causes FRBs, the eruption of plasma from young, highly magnetic neutron stars, or magnetars, may need to be rethought. The theory that FRBs come from magnetars was developed in part because the earlier FRB 121102 came from an active star-forming environment where young magnetars can be formed in the supernovae of massive stars, says Ravi. But the host galaxy of FRB 190523 is more mellow in comparison. Ultimately, to solve the mystery of FRBs, astronomers hope to uncover more examples of their host galaxy. With a full deep synoptic array, we're going to find and localize FRBs every few days, says Greg Hallinan, the director of OFRO and a professor of astronomy at Caltech. This is an exciting time for FRB discoveries. The researchers also say that FRBs can be used to study the amount and distribution of matter in our universe, which will tell us more about the environments in which galaxies form and evolve. As radio waves from FRBs head toward Earth, intervening matter causes some of the wavelengths to travel faster than others. The wavelengths become dispersed in the same way that a prism spreads apart light into a rainbow. The amount of dispersion tells astronomers exactly how much matter there is between the FRB sources and Earth. Most matter in the universe is diffuse, hot, and outside of galaxies, says Ravi. The state of matter, although not dark, is difficult to observe directly. However, its effects are clearly imprinted on every FRB, including the one we detected at such a great distance. This article is entitled Earliest Example of Merging Galaxies. Researchers using the radio telescope ALMA, Atacama Large Millimeter Submillimeter Array, observed signals of oxygen, carbon, and dust from a galaxy in the early universe 13 billion years ago. This is the earliest galaxy where this useful combination of three signals has been detected. By comparing the different signals, the team determined that the galaxy is actually two galaxies merging together, making it the earliest example of merging galaxies yet discovered. Takuya Hashimoto, a postdoctoral researcher at the Japan Society for the Promotion of Science in Waseda University, Japan, and his team used ALMA to observe B14-65666, an object located 13 billion light years away in the constellation Sextans. Because of the finite speed of light, the signals from there today had to travel for 13 billion years to reach us. In other words, they show us the image of what the galaxy looked like 13 billion years ago, less than 1 billion years after the Big Bang. ALMA detected radio emissions from oxygen, carbon, and dust in B14-65666. This is the earliest galaxy where all three of these signals have been detected. The detection of multiple signals is important because they carry complementary information. Data analysis show the emissions are divided into two blobs. I guess that's a scientific term. Previous observations with the Hubble Space Telescope, HST, had revealed two star clusters. Now, with the three emission signals detected by ALMA, the team was able to show that the two blobs do in fact form a single system, but they have different speeds. This indicates that the blobs are two galaxies in the process of merging. This is the earliest known example of merging galaxies. The research team estimated that the total stellar mass of B14-65666 is less than 10% of that of the Milky Way, and it is in the earliest phases of its evolution. Despite its youth, it is producing stars 100 times more actively than the Milky Way. Such active star formation is another important signature of galaxy mergers because the gas compression in colliding galaxies naturally leads to bursty star formation. With rich data from ALMA and HST, combined with advanced data analysis, we can put the pieces together to show that B14-65666 is a pair of merging galaxies in the earliest era of the universe, explains Hashimoto. Detection of radio waves from three components is such a distinct object clearly demonstrates almost high capability to investigate the distant universe. All right, that's it. These are both from ScienceDaily.com. Back to that. This is WB5OZL.
Brenda, this is NT5TM. Do we have anyone out there waiting to check in? Anyone who'd like to join us? Please come out with your call sign phonetically, name and location.
Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert Richardson.
AA5AH, thank you very much for checking in. I'm going to forge ahead. We ran really late last week, and so the history section had to mostly be omitted. I'm going to just dive into a giant encyclopedia worth of space history, although I'll try to make it fast and interesting. June 23rd, 1930, we marked the birth of Don Isley. If you visit the Frontiers of Flight Museum on Moon Day, July 20th, you can see the space capsule where he, Walt Cunningham, and Wally Schirra flew into space in the triumphal return of the Apollo program to orbit after the Apollo 1 disaster. Yes, the Apollo 7 capsule is right there, and you can see it at Moon Day. June 24th, 1946 celebrates the birthday of Ellison Onizuka. He's most famous for his accidental death in the Space Shuttle Challenger accident. Many people do forget that he previously flew on the Space Shuttle Discovery in the classified Department of Defense mission STS-51C. Two features in outer space are named for him, an asteroid, 3355 Onizuka, and a 29-kilometer diameter crater on the moon named simply Onizuka. June 24th, 1999 marks the death of Hugo Verderman. He was a telemetry and guidance system engineer. He was a member of the Werner von Braun team. He was instrumental in equipping V-2 rockets with telemetry and guidance systems. What's interesting about him is that he not only became an American citizen, but an American radio amateur holding the call sign Kilo 6 Tango Echo. June 30th, 2014, we not only had the Tunguska explosion, but the birth of Vladimir Chelomey. Who was he? Well, he was a competitor of the famous engineer Sergei Korolev. He invented the first working Soviet jet engine, and he was responsible for the world's first anti-ship cruise missile. He developed a whole family of rockets, the UR-100, 200, 500, and 700. Well, what does that mean? Well, you kind of know a few of these. The UR-100 was the Soviet Union's first mass-produced ICBM. The UR-500 was the Proton rocket, which continued use into the 21st century. And the UR-6 was meant to be a competitor to the famous giant N-1 rocket, which we'll talk more about in just a minute. On July 3rd, he almost was born on the 4th of July, we celebrate the birthday of Harrison Jack Schmitt. He was born in 1935. He was the only scientist to visit the moon. He was originally meant to fly on Apollo 18, but when that mission was canceled, the scientific community threw a fit that not one single scientist would go to the moon. So he did get to go to the moon on Apollo 17, and he collected a famous sample Troptolite 76535. It was considered the most fascinating sample collected from the moon because it contained an embedded magnetic field, suggesting that the moon once had a magnetic field. Okay, let's skip back to regular space history. On June 24th, 1974, Salyut 3 was launched. Well, that's a lie. Almaz 1 was launched. What was this? This was the world's first military space station. And I mean military. It had a big machine gun on it, which they successfully test-fired in orbit. Almaz 1 was meant to prove that humans could crew a reconnaissance satellite and aim the cameras and telescopes at the ground and pick out interesting targets to spy on faster than controllers on the ground could. They did prove that this worked, but the whole thing was kind of expensive and complicated, and both the U.S. and the Soviet Union decided that it was much faster to just launch expendable spy satellites than to actually launch a big crew. So we have a series of talk about. June 26, 1971 was the N1L36L. This was the failure of a super booster. The Soviet Union's N1 rocket was meant to be a competitor to our Saturn V. They had installed filters in the propellant lines meant to keep foreign objects from getting sucked into the pumps. More about that in a minute. They modified the shape of the tail. They modified the heat shielding. They painted it white to keep it cooler, and they modified the control system. That meant that unlike the previous two N1s, it actually got off the launch pad. Unfortunately, they hadn't been able to test the first stage because that was too big and too much work. So the interaction between all the gas plumes caused it to spin out of control. Control was lost 50 seconds after launch, and the rocket was blown up by range safety. Boom! Again, June 30th, 1908, the Tunguska event wrecks lumber and kills reindeer. We talked about this during my feature presentation. This may have been a stony meteorite or an iron meteorite. No one is clear because it turns out there's too many things that could have done the job. When a meteor is hitting the Earth's atmosphere, a tremendous amount of heat and energy is released. And at some point, that heat and energy becomes too much for the forces that hold the asteroid together. It flies apart. There's a big explosion, and it becomes very hard to figure out what it used to be because it's not anymore. The next item is not a kaboom, but it is a sad one. On June 30th, 1971, Soyuz 11 attempted to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, and the crew became the only humans to die in outer space. A valve meant to help equalize pressure during re-entry between the space capsule and the Earth's atmosphere was popped open by the force of separation charges that helped the spacecraft separate from other things it was docked to, and the spacecraft's atmosphere was vented into space before the crew would react. The Soyuz was not really capable of holding 3 cosmonauts. They were jammed in with no spacesuits and no emergency oxygen masks, and the mission crew paid the price. The Soyuz was then grounded for an extensive redesign. It returned to space at first as a 2-astronaut capsule, and it was many years before it was requalified to fly 3 astronauts in smaller, more efficient spacesuits. Happier note, June 30th, 1995 marked the release of Apollo 13. Yes, I'm talking about a movie starring Tom Hanks, Bill Paxton, and Kevin Bacon. This was a big hit. It was a critical success. Even Marilyn Lovell liked it. Yes, the real Jim Lovell's wife was proud of the way she was portrayed. This was a movie that was, took some artistic license, but went to great lengths to be technically accurate. And it was an important piece of modern space history because it got people interested in going to the moon again. It reignited interest in the Apollo program. I'll talk briefly about math. On June 30th, 2001, WMAP was launched. What's WMAP? This was the Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy Probe. What does that mean? This was a spacecraft that looked up into space go figure, and measured the cosmic microwave background. This was first discovered on Earth. It's the echo of the Big Bang, faint microwave energy that comes from all over the universe. It turns out that by measuring this faint microwave energy, we can establish a lot of things. For example, you can measure the age of the universe. You can measure the tiny fluctuations that happened just after the Big Bang and later gave rise to things like galaxy clusters. WMAP helped establish that the age of the universe is 13.772 billion years, plus or minus 59 million. This was a remarkable increase in precision. We went from knowing the age of the universe to something like 20% to knowing the age of the universe to about 1%. It made an accurate determination of the universe's rate of expansion, and, well, if you're a cosmologist, it was pretty awesome because it proved that the universe is about 4.5% matter, 24% dark matter, and 71% dark energy. What's that stuff? Dark matter, dark energy? Nobody. Good scientific instruments raise more questions than they find answers, and WMAP certainly did that. July 2nd, 1985 marked the launch of Giotto. This was a European robotic spacecraft to go to Halley's Comet. It took a lot of damage. Particles of dust eventually knocked out its camera. They knocked it into an uncontrolled spin, not before it got some good pictures. It was able to study a second comet, Griggs-Skeljup. I can't say that. It was a pretty neat probe. It was part of a whole flotilla, an armada of spacecraft that all examined Halley's Comet as it flew at its closest approach to the Earth in the spring of 1986. I'm going really fast here because, well, there's just so much history to get through at this time of year. People like to launch their space probes in the summer. The weather's better. On July 3rd, 1969, more kaboom, another poor, sad rocket. This N15L came before the one we mentioned earlier. It failed to clear the tower and exploded horribly in one of the largest non-nuclear explosions known. This was the explosion that cued us into the fact that the Soviet Union had a moon rocket program. CIA spy satellites photographed the destroyed launch pad, and it was pretty impossible to hide even from space. Something happened with one of the first stage engines. At the time, it was blamed on something getting sucked into the pump, a piece of metal slag, a piece of a fuel tank, a wrench left behind by a worker. All these explanations were probably lies. It turns out that the NK-33 engines that were used in the N1 had turbo pumps that were prone to just flying apart. They were kept in warehouses and sold as surplus, and people tried to use them for rockets in the early 21st century, and they had a very high and disturbing rate of turbo pump failures. The Soviet Union tried to launch their rocket. It was a big, beautiful rocket. It meant serious competition in the moon race. It could have brought a Soviet cosmonaut to the moon. But instead, the engines began to shut down one after another. The vehicle fell back down to the pad. The escape tower did work. It pulled the capsule, which was uncrewed, off of the rocket into a safe landing out in the desert. But the launch pad was destroyed in, again, one of the largest non-nuclear explosions ever recorded. Finally, I'll end on a happy note. On July 5th, 1687, a textbook got published. Well, that sounds boring, but this was Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, a textbook by Isaac Newton in 3 volumes. The second volume was kind of boring. It was a complicated argument about why space wasn't full of liquid and fluid vortexes like the tornado in your bathtub. No one really took that seriously. But volumes 1 and 3 were awesome. They laid out the mathematical basis behind planetary orbits, why the sun was not going around the Earth, but the Earth was going around the sun, and why everything in the solar system was orbiting a common center of gravity. As Newton himself said, the common center of gravity of the Earth, the sun, and the planets is esteemed to be the center of the world. If you can't do the math, you can't get there, and these were the books that laid out the math. Is NT5TM for the Saturday Night Skynet. I'd like to ask, If we have anyone who'd like to join us, if there's anyone who'd like to check in, please come now with your call sign phonetically.
This is Whiskey 5, Golf Juliet Tango. Whiskey 5, Golf Juliet Tango. From Carrington.
Whiskey Juliet Tango, I already had you in the list earlier in the night. Thank you for checking in from Carrollton. Do we have any other check-ins? Okay, Tom, I haven't left you much time, but if you'd like to hit any highlights of things you can see in the sky soon, any really cool visible satellite passes, please go ahead.
Completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow movie net. For this week anyways. I've got Tiangong 2, that is the Chinese space station. There's one good pass on July 11th. That one's a 3.7 magnitude. It will go over early morning, let's see, 3:56 a.m. out of the west-northwest to reach its highest point at 3:58. Whoops, let me do that again. July 11th. The first pass is 0.9 magnitude at 2:18, 90 minutes earlier. Out of the southwest, reach its highest point at 2:21 a.m. at 81 degrees, and then it will fall to the south-southeast at 2:24. So that looks like a pretty darn good pass. Next is OTV-5, or USA 277. This is the secret winged, the only winged spacecraft currently flying that's been in orbit for over a year now. It does have one good pass on July 13th. We don't know the magnitude. I'm not quite sure why that is. It may be because it's such a irregularly shaped spacecraft. That'll be at 3:02 a.m. out of the northwest to reach its highest point at 3:05. At 53 degrees, and it'll fall at 3:06 at 42 degrees to the south. Those are the only two. Next week, I'll go ahead and talk about the features, new features that are over at Heavens Dash Above. I kind of figured we would have extra time, but this works perfectly for me. Back to you, KE5ICX. Tom, yep, unfortunately some of our earlier segments ran a bit long. This is NP5TM for Skynet. Before we close the net down, I'd like to take a final round of check-ins. This is last call. Anyone who'd like to get on the list, please come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location. And at this time, I'd like to have a kind of 73 round. This is the last call for comments or questions. Obviously, we're running very late here, so it has to be kept very short. But if you have a last word you'd like to squeak in, now is the time to do it. Anyone for the 73 round, please come now with your call sign phonetically. Thank you, everybody. Tonight we had 20 hams participating on the air or by Echolink. Thank you to everyone who checked in. I hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 o'clock p.m. local Dallas time to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand, you don't have to make a permanent commitment. You could just try taking some check-ins once. Just send an email to nets, N-E-T-S, at w5fc.org. You can always follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook, as well as in our audio and video streams, video archives, and other internet resources by going to w5fc.org.
Until next Saturday night, this is Tony, NT5TM, closing this net at 22:32 local and returning this repeater to abnormal amateur use for about 5 minutes. 73, everybody, and have a great evening discovering the universe.
In 5 minutes to discuss the Afterglow movie, which is tonight somewhere in time from 1980. Go powder your noses. Come back in about 5 minutes and we'll start that net. This is KE5ICX. Thank you, Tony. Great net.
WK5YE. How's it been going, Ben?
are waiting on net control. I'm sure she'll be back here as soonish. So I'm going to go ahead and give the synopsis for the movie tonight, which is Somewhere in Time, and I'll give you some details too. If you are listening for the first time, we do watch movies. We get the movie. We go ahead and put that information out. If you would like to know what the next week's movie is, or any time, any of the updates, you can send an email to KE5ICX, Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-ray at yahoo.com, and I will put you on the list, and I'll tell you what the next movie will be. You can also use Facebook, which has a Facebook page. It's called Afterglow Movie. That's 2 words, Afterglow, and the word movie. Just say you would like to sign up, and I will give you a list of films coming up. Usually do them 3 weeks in advance, so that makes it a lot easier. You can go ahead and make that happen. All right, let me go ahead and give the synopses. The net control is here, but I'll go ahead and give the synopses, and then I'll hand it over to net control. So, the movie that we watched this week, or was assigned to Somewhere in Time, is a 1980 American romantic science fiction drama film. No, it can't be, can it? Directed by Jeanette Schwartz, whoever that is. It is a film adaptation of the 1975 novel Midtime Return by Richard Matheson, that Richard Matheson from Twilight Zone, who also wrote the screenplay. The film stars Christopher Reeve, James Seymour, and Christopher Plummer. Yes, that Christopher Reeve, that Jane Seymour, and that Christopher Plummer. Replays Richard Collier, a playwright who becomes obsessed with a photograph of a young woman at the Grand Hotel. Through self-hypnosis, he travels back in time to the year 1912 to find love with actress Elise McKenna. William Fawcett Robertson, played by Plummer, who fears that the romance will derail her career and resolves to stop him. The film is known for its musical score, composed by John Barry. He's best known for all his James Bond films. The 18th variation of Sergei Rachmaninoff's Rhapsody on a theme of Paganini also appears several times in the film. It's Richard Collier's favorite music in all the world, he says. The plot goes on and on. I will only give you the first couple of paragraphs here just to give you a feel for it. On May 19, 1972, college theater student Richard Collier, played by Reeves, is celebrating the debut of his play he has written. During the celebration, he is approached by an elderly woman, played by Susan French, who places a pocket watch in his hand. Please come back to me. Richard does not recognize the woman, who returns to her own residence and dies in her sleep. 8 years later, Richard is a successful playwright living in Chicago, but has recently broken up with his girlfriend and is struggling with writer's block. Feeling stressed from writing his play, he decides to take a break and travels out of state to the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island in Michigan. While looking at the display in the hotel's museum, Richard becomes enthralled by a photograph of a beautiful woman. With the assistance of Arthur Beale, played by Bill Irwin, an elderly bellhop who has been in the hotel since 1910, Richard discovers the woman as Elise McKenna, a famous early 20th century actress. Richard learns that she was an aged woman who gave him the pocket watch 8 years earlier. Traveling to the home of Laura Roberts, McKenna's former housekeeper and companion, he discovers a music box Elise has made in the shape of the Grand Hotel that plays his favorite melody. He also discovers among her effects a book on time travel written by his old college professor, Dr. Gerard Finney. Learning that McKenna read the book several times, Richard becomes obsessed with the idea of traveling back to 1912 and meeting Elise McKenna, with whom he has fallen in love. Okay, I will end it there and turn this over to net control. There's more to come, and hopefully you saw the movie. This is KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. This is WB50ZL. I will be your friendly net this evening. So let's go ahead and take check-ins. Let's do low power short time first. We want your call sign, your name, your QTH, and very importantly, whether or not you have seen this movie. So, go ahead. Short time, low power.
This is Whiskey 5, call 2. And
That was somebody trying to check in or something unusual. Whatever it was, I didn't catch any of it. So if you were trying to check in and you can maybe go to higher power or improve your position, you can go ahead and try now.
this is Whiskey 5, call Juliet Tango. Name is Jean and QTH is Carrington. I have not seen this movie. Back to the net. This is Whiskey 5, call Juliet Tango.
Very good. Whiskey Golf Juliet Tango, and I didn't get your name right. If you'd please fill me in.
The name is Jean. Golf Echo November Echo. Golf Echo November Echo. Back to you. This is Whiskey 5, Golf Juliet Tango.
Hey, Jean. Well, thank you very much for checking in. You say you have not seen the movie? We'll come back to him later. Let's go for regular check-ins now, please.
Whiskey Tango 9 Victor, Michael in Plano, and I saw part of the movie. I'm going to finish it. Haven't had time today.
5 Bravo Bravo. Still early. Yes, I've seen the movie a couple times. Take. This is 5 Zombies Need Jobs. So, Foxtrot 5, Tango Sierra Kilo, Berlin, Dallas. I did see the movie.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, J near Weatherford. I did see the film.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom, Louisville. Yep, I saw it.
You did see the movie, and 5BB Bill, yes. KF5 is the Zombies Need Jobs. Frank, I didn't catch whether you saw the movie.
5ZNJ, no, I did not see the movie. Back to you.
Sorry, I had you as KF5, you're KG5, correct?
Yeah, Roger. Kilo Golf 5, zombies need jobs. Back to you.
Yeah, I knew that. KF5TSK Burl, yes, you did. KG5BZWJ, yes. KE5ICX Tom, yes. I think there may have been a double in there somewhere. So if I didn't call your name, you can come back and give me your call sign, please.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony and Dallas, Aaron and I didn't see the movie.
NT5TM Tony, who did not see the movie. And let's have Echo Link calls now.
Geez, NT5TM correction. I did, yes, saw the movie, NT5TM.
Okay, thanks. Echo Link, please.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy and Sherman, yes, I saw the film.
Sure if you got me. W5EBB.
Hey, was that KF5PDS, Billy, who did see the movie, and W5EBB? No, I did not get you. You must have been the one that doubled. Did you see the movie?
Yes, I did see the movie. W5EBB.
All right, thanks, Dave. Any more seconds?
Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel. Robert, I did not see the movie. Whiskey 5, Golf, Juliet Tango. I did not see the movie.
Hey, Whiskey 5 Golf Juliet Tango. Have you checked in already? Let's say your name is Jean and you did not see the movie. Okay, anybody else?
KF5, SKF, Gabriel. I did not see the movie.
I missed the last check-in. Please come back.
KI5, SKS, Gabriel. I did not see the movie.
Okay, Gabriel, I missed your prefix. I got SKX. So what's the prefix on there? I'm told it's KI5. Okay. Did you see the movie?
Sorry about that. No, I did not see the movie.
Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. If you're new to this, the way this works is we go down the list, calling on everybody in turn. And first we talk about the plot, and then we talk about the characterization, and then we move on to maybe special effects, or which there weren't in this movie. You could talk about anything else you want to mention. Just because you didn't see the movie does not mean you can't have opinions because yeah, I'm sure some of you smart people have already figured out time travel. I want you to share it with us. So anything you want to talk about, you can certainly do so, whether it's exactly relevant to the movie or not. So let's get started. W5 GJT. Gene, you did not see the movie, but do you have any comments on time travel or anything related to the movie?
This is Whiskey 5 Golf Tango. I have not seen the movie and I don't have any comments. I'll be listening and learning. Back to the net, this is W5 TJC.
Alrighty, well, if you have some ideas or thoughts, you can bring those up later. You don't have to, we're pretty informal here. WT9V, Michael, tell us what you thought about the plot.
Well, I was trying to say that I only saw the first part of it because I got interrupted and I ran out of time, so I haven't seen the rest of it. Could you, put me at the bottom of the list and maybe I'll come up with something entertaining to say based on what other people have said, please? WT9V?
Absolutely. You feel free to refute our opinions because you probably know a lot more about time travel than I do. Okay, N5BB, Bill, go ahead.
This is N5BB. Yes, I saw the movie today, and I've seen it at least once in the past. I was disappointed in it, which I think most reviewers were. As far as the plot, I think it was pretty simple. And once you figured it out, I was kind of bored by the rest of the movie, to be honest. I thought the premise of the movie that just by wishing you could travel in time, you could do it, was pretty thin. And him seeing a modern coin would suck him away from it also seemed pretty thin. All these things based on just wishes causing things to happen doesn't make me very happy. That's all I got. N5BB.
Okay, can't read my writing. Oh, KG5ZNJ, Frank. You didn't see the movie, but I bet you have opinions.
This is KG5ZNJ. Well, I looked at the synopsis of this, and, I didn't have a whole lot of time. I was planning maybe on watching it today, but when I read about it, well, I'm not really tailored for the romantic-type movies that feature hand-holding, long walks, and, mush. But I'm in it for the little green men and the ray guns and the Mylar suits and the rocket ships and so forth. The time travel thing kind of was interesting, I guess, but it wasn't enough to make me watch it. I kind of figured it would turn into a Harlequin romance, and I have a particular dislike of French clowns. So a lightweight offering, it sounded like, and I skipped out on it. KG5ZNJ, back to you.
Okay. Yeah, personally, I'm not a big fan of chick flicks either. Like them a little more than I like clowns, but what's that say? Okay, KF5TSK Burrow, go ahead.
This is KF5TSK. Well, the most inspiring thing about the movie is you can do time travel without a DeLorean. That really made me happy. It was supposed to have been a romantic movie, but somehow there was a physical attraction. I just didn't know what it was that Richard was determined, but did he really want to live in 1912? Where did he see this woman in Look or Time magazine? One of the things I noticed in the movie that most of the captions were in another language, but there were a few titles that popped up in English, and I didn't understand why that happened. KF5TSK back to net.
I had that too. I think it was in Vietnamese, and I could not find a button to disable that or change it. So it was kind of distracting. Okay, KG5BZWJ, go ahead.
Okay, this is KG5BZW. Let's just tell how the atmosphere affects my signal to the repeater, because this is one of those times when it just doesn't seem, it just works, so we'll see. I may go to Echo Link afterwards. Anyway, on to the movie. Well, really kind of creepy romance flick. The guy is obsessed with this lady back in the past. He time travels by obsessively thinking he's in 1912 and removing everything that's modern and all that. So it's just by force of will that he goes there. They have a little romance, and I guess it's a fine date or so, and they're all about living together. I don't really understand that. I think you want to interact a little bit more time, but anyway, let me see. I almost feel like I could write an essay, but at the top of my head, I'm not sure what's worse about it. I will say this, just not got back to the side. I believe I saw this film before, and it kind of creeped me out back then too. But it was all about the John Williams music, and of course he's featured, or at least I saw that he's featured. That and of course the Rachmaninoff piece, which is of course anachronistic, which is kind of cool, interesting aspect to the film, but it's kind of a sad point. I don't think there's, how do you say this? I don't like, I think there's an unhealthy aspect to the film. The obsessiveness about the characters just kind of creeps me out. So, I guess there's that. And I'm spending way too much time talking about that, and I think there's other people that have more interesting things to say, so I'll just hand it to them. This is KG5BZW back to net.
Hey, KU5ICX, Tom, go ahead.
Well, I may be one of the few people that actually like this film. this is a Richard Matheson story, and he is a hero to me. He's written some of the greatest stories of all time. I Am Legend, which was Last Man on Earth, and of course the movie I Am Legend, and The Omega Man was an example of his early, some of his writing. Twilight Zone, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. He also did the screenplay for Duel. I mean, this guy's a legend, and I just kind of felt that this is the only film where he did something, or a screenplay. He did do the screenplay for this, where it was sort of a romantic thing with the time travel. I didn't mind that at all. I thought it was great, and it had some of the elements with time travel that I really like, which is it you? And she senses or thinks that something's going on, and that this is someone. Has this happened before? This is the old time travel nosebleed thing. Is this in a loop? And is this loop being played out once again? That, I think, is kind of fascinating and kind of fun. The answer is no, it isn't. She does not recognize him except for who he is, Richard Collier, this guy from Chicago, which I thought was kind of cool. The idea of going back into time, I think, is kind of interesting. How else would you do it? There is some theories, and I'm going to digress a little bit, having to do with that time is malleable, that it can go backwards, it can go forwards, and some of that's being researched today, and I think that there's some elements to it that might play here. What difference does it make whether the mind can transcend time or transcend place and be able to a connection? I mean, Ed Mitchell did that on, what was it, Apollo 14. He tried to do ESP, and he firmly believed in it. Of course, Ed Mitchell was nuts, but in any case, I think it still plays out. It's interesting that they would bring this forward. I love the idea that the character is familiar with McKenna through the whole thing, and that his favorite music plays out on that special music box that was created with Grand Hotel. I thought that was cool. That's his favorite music in all the world, he says. There's touch points in the thing that shows that he's on the right track and that she matters. And of course, the thing with him looking at the picture on the wall, he sees that. You know, maybe this is more characterization. I'm sorry, I shouldn't mention this, but I think this has to do with the plot, since it is kind of a romantic story, and it does move the story along. But I thought that was great. I kind of have a soft spot for this movie. I first saw it the SS Veracruz in 1980. I was on the world's tiniest cruise ship, and I think it's sunk to the bottom of the ocean now. But I thought it was pretty cool then, and I really liked it. I'm going to stop now because I think I'm spoiling characterization. KE5ICX.
Okay, NT5TM, Tony, go ahead.
By will alone I set my mind in motion. It is by the juice of Sappho that thoughts acquire speed, the lips acquire a stain, the stains become a warning. It is by will alone I set my mind in motion. I rather found Mentat Sindune to be much more believable than the idea of time travel by self-hypnosis with a cassette recorder. I gotta agree with N5BB. The premise of that was incredibly thin. I had no soft spot for it. It was just dumb, as well as the idea that he could accidentally be sucked backwards in time to the future by looking at a coin. That in particular made Aaron worry that there was a plot hole here. Was he even in the past at all? Was it some sort of astral projection? Was his body still in the present, 1980, our past, but his present, getting weak and starving and, I don't know, needing to use the bathroom? What would happen when his body in 1980 died? The plot did not deal with this. Likewise, Frank need have no fear of it being a Harlequin romance because there was no real romance in the plot. They knew each other for a day, and yet somehow that was so overwhelming that it affected her life for the next 60 years in this dominating, controlling fashion. That made no sense to us at all. And really, I was shocked to hear Tom say that this was made from a novel. It felt like it was made from a very short story, 5 pages or less, that got blown up and stretched out into a feature film. It just didn't have enough material to work with. For us, the plot was implausible and unpleasant and sleep-inducing, and we'll bash the movie more in future rounds. NT5TM.
Alrighty, KF5PDS. Billy, go ahead.
Tony, thank you for reciting the Mentat Creed. I was doing that here at home. I thought about typing it in on the chat window, but I didn't do it. But I'm glad that you picked up on that. I've always found this movie enjoyable. I have not watched it in recent years, though. When I first saw that, I was in my early teens. And so, of course, I enjoyed the film. And, thinking back on it, I feel like I still would enjoy it, even though the plot, like you say, is implausible about traveling to the past in time. But I often wondered that, did he physically travel back, or was he still laying on the bed, and it traveled in his mind, which I think would, be, I guess, more feasible than him physically traveling backwards in time. I think about kind of the same concept of in the movie John Carter, which would be a good sci-fi film for us to watch because of the way they travel from Earth to Barsoom, and Jasum to Barsoom and back. Is his body is still on the Earth, but his being travels to Mars, and so I kind of feel like it's that same kind of travel. But instead of using a device like they do, he uses just his mind with the self-hypnosis, which I do feel is a little weak. It's a thin plot. But when I first saw that aside, I enjoyed the story, his encounter with her. I was taken by surprise by the coin, snapping him back. But I think if he was still here, it would snap his mind back to the present. Just like hearing a sound, like if he heard a siren go by or something, it might snap him back to the present mind. But I thought it was an interesting idea to be in the space where she was, immerse yourself in the period, and then the self-hypnosis is just, like you say, a sheer act of will, of willing yourself to go send your mind back to that time. So thinking about it that way, I think, it works. It's fine. It makes an enjoyable story to me. So I'm with Tom. I really like this film. Even though, the plot is steady, predictable to a point. I did not expect the coin to come out. That was a surprise. And then the downside did feel kind of anticlimactic because it's like after that happens, it's like what's left to happen, him to waste away and die. So that was very sad. And I remember the first time I saw it, it was a tearjerker for me. So, but I've always enjoyed the film, and the music, like I say, is very enjoyable. I love John Williams anyway. But the title track and everything, it's still very emotional, good and wonderful music. So anyway, without having seen it recently, I don't really have any other points to point out, but I'm on the side of liking the film. So anyway, I will come back with more with characters later. This is KFI PDS back to net.
W5EBB, David.
Thanks, Brenda. Somewhere in Time should have starred B. Arthur because the movie is so maudlin. It is a romantic, sappy, and sentimental story on the surface. But take away the romance, the beautiful scenery, the lush orchestral orchestral score by John Barry, then consider the movie plot from a different perspective. And this movie can be regarded on more of a genre of tragedy or even horror. Now, I don't mean to be contrarian, but simply offer an alternative view from a different perspective that other commenters have already touched on. An aged, career-driven theater actress, constrained and dominated by her playwright business partner, bitter from a loveless life, seeks to take revenge upon another burgeoning playwright at the beginning of a promising career. She gives him her most personal and cherished possession, a gold pocket watch. But by accepting the idol, Richard Collier also accepts the curse she has placed upon it. Over the course of the next several years, Collier's personal life and professional life are destroyed, and he is inexplicably driven to the Grand Hotel and to discover the history of this pocket watch and its owner, and inevitably becomes immediately smitten and obsessed by Ms. McKenna. In a sort of self-serve seance hypnosis with all the prerequisites of creating a lucid dream, he achieves it, and he imagines he travels back in time. But when he awakes and thereby, quote-unquote, returns, there is no snap of the fingers to free him from his self-hypnosis. He is still convinced he belongs in the past, and his rejection of the present creates a cognitive dissonance resulting in his catatonic state. In short, in his attempt to travel and remain back in time, he not only tried and failed, he tried and died. The story of The Haunting of Richard Collier, or The Curse of the Gold Pocket Watch. W5EBB.
Very interesting. Okay, AA5AH, Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Robert. I did not see the movie, so I really have no comments, but just interested in listening to you guys. I plan to watch the movie. I was just looking online for rentals and might get one.
Okay, KI5SKX, Gabriel, I think you said your name was. You didn't see the movie, but do you have comments?
Yes, I looked through the Wikipedia page, and it seems like an interesting film. I might go and watch it if I can find a place to do so. I think I might like this film, but I see in the chat on Echolink that someone said the music even seemed so boring. But other than that, I don't think I have any more comments. KI5FKS.
Okay, well, we all watch this movie for free on the internet. You go to Afterglow Movie, that's 2 words. It's a Facebook page. And there Tom has listed all the movies and posted a link. You just click on the movie title, and it takes you to wherever we can see it for free. So I don't think he's ever put one up that we had to pay for. He always finds a free source before we decide on that for the next movie. Okay, it's my turn. As I said, chick flicks are not my usual thing. But, you know, sometimes I do watch them, but it's not my favorite genre. But I had seen this before, and I enjoyed it, and I actually enjoyed it again. It has a lot of great elements, fantastic actors, beautiful scenery, luscious costumes. Just fascinated with the turn-of-the-century costuming, and or shortly after turn of the century. And the hotel, you know, it was just beautiful. I would love to go there. So you got, you know, it's kind of a cotton candy thing. It's like, you know, pretty people and pretty clothes and pretty scenery and all that. not enough to make it a great movie. I think they kind of struggled at it, came up with an idea and kept trying to hammer the peg into the hole, and ended up with a lot of inconsistencies and plot holes and such as that. And the music. I forgot, the music is just wonderful, and it was the most successful thing about this movie. It was panned in the beginning. It didn't make much money. It didn't lose money. It now has a fan club, and every year there's a convention of the fans at the hotel, and I don't know what they do, but its popularity has remained. And John's successful thing about this movie, this was his most successful record out. Well, music, I don't know, I guess record albums or sheet music or something, I'm not sure. But this is his biggest success, and he certainly had a lot of successes. I didn't understand about the penny. I mean, he knew he wasn't in that time. He knew he was from the future. And when he saw it, he should have just said, oh, yeah, that. But you have to wonder, what was he thinking? Was he going to go back in time and stay there? Which, in most time travel stories, if you change things, that you upset everything. If he left the current day and went back in time, it creates a real imbalance in everything. And he would go back, he's got no money, he's got no job, and no identity, essentially. So it's like, did you think this through? And they said he would be weak. So how was he, it wasn't a problem in the beginning, but as he got weaker, how would he deal with it? And, it's a real tenuous grasp on a situation. It's like you just going back through self-hypnosis, which could end at any time, any kind of a jarring situation or any kind of shock could send you forward. And what if that happened in a few years? Once he's got an established life back then. And then there's the problem of the watch. When was the watch made? Did it exist outside of this loop? Kind of a curious thing. But whenever you get into time travel, I've never yet known reliable time travel theory. In Primer, they're called into a cardboard box and went 6 hours ahead. Now, there was some kind of mechanism which they never explained. Nobody ever explains it because, they can't. They don't know how it works. And then we had frequency where you could talk across time with a ham radio. They never explain exactly how it happened. Or they always say, it's just a storm or a wormhole or something. And in most time travel movies, they have to construct something pretty ridiculous and unbelievable, or it's not going to happen. So, so I cut them a little slack on that, they had to do something to make this happen, and I think hypnotizing yourself is as good as climbing into a box. So, okay, I've gone on too long. I'm going to turn this over, and we're going to talk about characters. So let's start back at the beginning. And this is WB50ZL. W5GJT. Gene, do you have anything to add to the conversation? Nothing heard. WT9V Michael, go ahead.
didn't have a whole lot of things at this point. I thought that the regal old lady was very regal, and I just don't really understand why what's his name, Christopher Reeve, got so incredibly obsessed. That was just kind of unclear, but like I said, I didn't see the rest of it yet, so I'll have to work on that later. And I keep forgetting to say back to net. I'm sorry about that, WT9B.
That's okay. N5BB, Bill, go ahead.
Oh, this is N5BB. This is made from a novel which was originally called Bedtime Return by Richard Matheson. And Richard Collier, the protagonist, had been diagnosed with an inoperable brain cancer and was hanging around the hotel because of that. So in the novel, he had brain cancer, and that may have explained maybe why he had these flights of fancy that he was doing these things. But in the film, it appeared to me that he just, for some unknown reason, got suddenly transfixed by this actress, and he was not really affected by her when he got the watch originally. He thought it was strange. He thought the watch was interesting, but he wasn't really transfixed by her at that point until later when he visited the hotel and saw these different things. And I didn't understand that. I didn't understand why he kept doing more and more research and got more and more focused. I just didn't understand the reason for it. So, I kind of like maybe the idea in the novel that he had a brain tumor and he was kind of mentally sick, ill. Well, the other characters. So Elise McKenna, I don't know why she was so transfixed by him either. So I think that was what the movie was trying to do, was to make it seem somehow special that they were so instantly transfixed with each other, but that didn't seem believable to me. It seemed like this unbelievable event, like they were pulled into some vortex out of their control, and it wasn't explained to me why that was. Maybe it was supposed to be the time travel aspect that was pulling them into this connection, but I didn't understand that. Anyway, I guess that's the characterization part for me in 5BB.
All right, KG5ZNJ, Frank.
KG5ZNJ. Well, just reading the Wikipedia page, and it's saying that it's American romantic science fiction drama. Romantic science fiction drama. Well, given the cast of characters in Christopher Reeve, they should have added action to that, and in the middle of this movie, they could have had General Zod and his two henchmen fly in. That would be awesome. Kneel before Zod. That would have been great. That's all I got to say. I didn't see the movie. KG5ZNJ.
Oh, I love that. KG5BZW. Sorry, Jay, go ahead.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu. Oh, I don't hear myself. I'm going to go to the exit.
Okay, KG5BZW. All right. Yeah, I don't know that there's much I can really add. Um, literally, I think Bill just took the words right out of my mouth. The whole romance thing between the characters, I already mentioned, I kind of found creepy and unbelievable, but that's kind of a aspect of the characters too. Yeah, I just have a problem with it when one of the central motivations of the film, I mean, within the film, is just so, I don't know, out there. So I'll go ahead and talk about secondary characters, I guess, and I mean, I don't know, I'm not sure what to say. I mean, because besides that, the character seems a little bit flat, and there's not much I really think I can say. I will say, let me say a couple of things. Yeah, John Barry, yeah, not John Williams. Goodness. But it was the music was performed by Roger Williams, so I can see why I got confused there. And otherwise, I'm kind of fascinated by Bill N5BB's report that the visions and whatnot might be due to the brain tumor because, well, not first-hand knowledge, but I know I've certainly known someone that had a brain tumor, and there were times she was just all over the place. So I'm kind of fascinated by the novel now, but this film, I can't think of anything else. I'll be commenting about the one good thing I think about the movie, which is the environment and the setting and all of that next time. KG5BZW.
A5ICX characters.
You guys are all party poopers. I actually, there's always the phrase "love at first sight," and I could see Collier and McKenna getting together, Elise and Richard, and she seeing him for the first time, or him seeing her for the first time in the picture and that, and the radiance and all of that. I could see that. When you're a kid, you always have a first crush, and I think that still kind of is what happened there. The other part is that you've also got the reinforcement of whatever the time thing is. There is, I think, a loop going on, and as such, there may be some memories of what happened before. I don't know. It's time travel. Nobody does it. Not regularly. Well, we all go time traveling, but we all go forward in time. 1 second in real time to 1 second in real time. So I don't know. I kind of liked it. This is as I mentioned earlier, I have a soft spot with this film, and I think the characters are just fine. I enjoy them. I can see them, holding gaze and doing their thing and figuring out that they were made for each other, and maybe that's what that was all about in Time Return, that they could get together again. So, I don't know. I didn't mind at all. I thought that the feeling to the film and the reinforcement of that time actually worked quite well, and it helped to create that romantic time. This is almost, it's not quite the Gilded Age. It's after the Gilded Age, but it's a simpler time. It's kind of romantic. Of course, these are the upper crust. There's nobody dying or struggling or anything else. So it creates a romantic backdrop that seems to work extremely well. And as somebody else mentioned, the photography really works. Of course, the Grand Hotel is quite romantic in and of itself. Let me reset. It helps to make it special and a special place. I've been there twice to Mackinac Island, and definitely it kind of throws you back in time, which also helps in this film because maybe part of the inspiration is the thing. It allows it to create that kind of psyche because it's there. I'll talk more about Mackinac Island, having been there, and it's kind of a special place. It's a destination. If you're from Michigan like myself, Mackinac Island is one of those destinations that you definitely want to go to. So that's it for me on that until the next round. KE5ICX.
Okay, NT5, TM Tony.
Yes, I would have loved General Zod, a story I have told before and will tell again because it's fun. When I saw the movie From Dusk Till Dawn years ago, I had a tremendously wonderful time because I was going to a sneak preview in a theater sponsored by a local radio station, and all we knew was that it was the new Quentin Tarantino movie. We didn't know what it was about. So we're halfway through the movie, and then suddenly, it's a fairly conventional, violent Quentin Tarantino action movie, and then someone turns into a vampire. It was wonderful. It was exciting. It was really awesome. I have a wonderful affection for that movie ever since then. It was just a complete blast. So yes, having General Zod appear in the middle would have just been absolutely hilarious and wonderful and outstanding. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. We got a movie with very shallow, insipid characters who are almost completely unbelievable and have no particular real human emotions. There were two kind of saving graces to the characters, one for me and one for Aaron. I did like the fact that the movie was at pains to show how our actress, heroine, was always controlled and watched over by the grumpy old bearded man and never allowed to have any friends and certainly never allowed to have a boyfriend. So I guess it is possible she could have had a big crush on Christopher Reeve, even though he seemed to have no redeeming features and no interesting characteristics at all. But that's always a hard thing in movies, We can't really see people getting to know each other or falling in love because that takes forever. So it imposes a really hard burden on the actors to show this developing chemistry and attraction. And although they established a plausible reason for it, I really don't think those characters showed it. Now, Aaron's saving grace for the characters in this movie was a reference library. A small part early in the movie, Christopher Reeve's character demands all these magazines be brought I need to know more. And she makes it clear through acting that she's not actually very interested in doing this, and it's getting late in the day and she'd like to go home, but he, blissfully goes on and makes her do it anyway. Aaron did like that little subtle bit of acting there to show that she was getting a little exasperated with him. So, some kind of redeeming characteristics there with the grumpy old man protecting her and the little reference librarian. But yeah, by and large, they just seem so empty. I didn't get it. NT5TM.
Okay, KF5PDS, Billy.
Yeah, I kind of always chalked the attraction up to the love at first sight trope, but so other people see other things, and and I've always enjoyed the Christopher Plummer character, as the manager, very controlling, domineering, not wanting her to become romantically involved because he probably felt I don't know if he felt her like a possession, or he maybe was obsessed with her, maybe romantically, of course, and couldn't requite that, but Christopher Plummer always brings a strong presence to the screen, even in other films, he can be a good guy or villain. He plays those both equally well, and so I think it was a great move to have him in the movie, and I agree with Tony and Frank. If he had popped up and turned into a vampire, that would have been awesome. It would have certainly jazzed things up a lot. It would have put an interesting twist to the story. But yeah, I always enjoy his characterizations and the things that he brings to the screen. So yeah, being that I didn't watch it recently, I wish I'd had a chance to see it more recently. I just didn't have time. But yeah, I don't remember much, depth or anything in the character, Christopher Reeve's character or Jane Seymour's character. It was just, pure love interest and meant to be, I guess, on an innocent level. But and so yeah, there wasn't a lot there. But I always chalked their romance up to love at first sight. He just saw her picture of her in her prime and was just so smitten with her that he wanted to travel back in time to actually meet her. So. That's the way I've always felt about it. And I didn't remember The Librarian. I'll have to go back and watch that to see the beginning of it again. I just, again, haven't seen it in a while. But other than that, I really don't have anything to add, so I'll return it to you. This is KF5 PDS. Back to next.
Okay, W5EBB, David.
Well, speaking of movie tropes, this one had a good one. He's sitting at the typewriter, and any author who has writer's block, puts a blank page in, stares at the typewriter, and then rips the page out, wads it up, and throws it in the trash can. When in doubt, just start with the sentence, "The night was sultry," and then it'll just flow from there. Now, referring back to plot a little bit, or of how you could have a long-term living in the past session, there is empirical data, historical evidence, that long-term lucid dreaming, even living in the past for an entire year, is possible. Consider in Dallas, Bobby Ewing disappeared for an entire season in a single contiguous dream by Pamela Ewing. So yes, there is a firm foundation, basis, and precedent for that. Okay, characters. Christopher Plummer, just kind of there. Jane Seymour, just kind of there. Christopher Reeve gave it a reasonable attempt. But for me, his dramatic roles in movies, including this one, just seem inauthentic, kind of vacillating between being flippant and casual to being overly serious and dramatic, never quite establishing a stride for the character. And I don't think it's because he was typecast in his role as Superman. I think he just played that particular role better. Back to a particular scene, and this was disturbing when I watched it. It really was. It was a jolting scene. After Collier has been abducted, when he awakens to see the large horse head above him, Collier unable to move his arms or legs, was eerily prophetic of what would ultimately happen to Christopher Reeve in real life. It was kind of weird. W5EBB.
Okay, let's see. I think AA5AH did not want to make comments, or W5GJT. KI5SKX, did you have any comments?
KI5SKF, not much beyond what everyone else has said. Even reading through the Wikipedia article, there doesn't appear to be much depth to the characters. But I guess I will say maybe it's a little ironic or funny that Richard Collier was a playwright and did not have a very deep character. KI5SKS, back to net.
Okay, do we have any more check-ins? Sorry, I forgot to ask for that at the end of the last rotation. All right, I thought the characters were okay. I don't have a real problem with it. Romance is often very silly in movies. Think about that movie with Meg Ryan and the little boy and the skyscraper in New York. It's like, people just look at each other and fall in love. And that's what happens in the movies, and sometimes that's what happens in real life. So, it really is hard to make a new story and make it different. And I think that's one reason why a lot of movies fall flat. It's like, well, we can't do all the other stuff. It's all been done before. At the end, when he goes to join her on the other side, it's really a good thing that she got young again, because it might have been awkward for him dating a woman like his grandmother that usually is kind of an odd fit. I heard a story the other day, and I looked it up. This is not a really new article, several years old, but they were saying that Type A and Type B personalities experience time differently. And it's subjective. So when we talk about time, it's kind of slippery. You talk about time travel. Time is not just a real constant scientific thing that you can pin down. And by the way, Type A individuals estimated that a minute had gone by in 58 seconds, and Type B judged each minute to last 77 seconds. Not quite sure what that says about people. Is what's the cause and what's the effect? Okay. It's almost midnight, so if you want to say anything else about anything, just give us your call sign. I won't go down the list again and spend time doing that. Just, if you have any more comments, just give us your call.
N5B.
V.
5 EBB.
KI5 SKS.
G5BZW.
I got N5BB, WT9V, W5EBB, KE5ICX, and KI5SKX. And there may have been one or two more. Let me know if you didn't hear your name.
KG5BZW.
KG5BZW. Okay, well, you can always jump in again at the end if you have something else to add. So we'll start with N5BB.
Yes, this is N5BB. Both Richard Matheson and his daughter, both of them appeared as minor characters or extras in the film. That's all. N5BB.
That's interesting. I also saw that William Macy had a very small part in the beginning before he was anybody famous. WT9V. Go ahead, Michael.
Like I said, I haven't seen the whole movie yet, but what I have seen so far, I like. I agree with Tom, and I'm not sucking up, I promise. But I think that the movie is I haven't watched the whole thing, but I like it so far, and I'm gonna watch it. I thought my first thought at the beginning was, come back to me. How mysterious, how foreshadowing. And like other people, I don't know why he became so obsessed with that. It's just kind of weird. And I was sitting there watching the thing, going, okay, you're supposed to remove everything. You're sitting under electric lights with a tape recorder. That's not very 1912, but he eventually figured out most of it. And anyway, so that's about all I got at this point. WC9V, back to net. Thank you.
Okay, W5EVD.
Regarding the soundtrack, now I'm not a master sommelier equivalent to be able to identify a given wine just by tasting it, but I can identify at least John Barry music when I hear it. What I can't do is identify the movie that his music is from. When I heard this score, yeah, it was beautiful, but okay, is this from I Had a Farm in Africa, Out of Africa, From Russia with Love, Body Heat, Somewhere in Time? Okay. He has very signature styles. The cello is featured in a lot of the orchestral scores, and it seems to follow the same sequence of notes across all his different movies. But I mean, it's pretty, but it's also pretty consistent and recognizable, let's say. But it was pretty. W5EBB.
Oh, it definitely was, and some of the music was from Rachmaninoff, but he's given plenty of credit in the credits. K5ICX, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brenda. I think first off, Grand Hotel, which I've been to, as I mentioned earlier, twice. It's out in the island, up in northern Michigan. Well, the northern tip of Michigan, the Lower Peninsula, is kind of cool. It's a great place. One of the things that is quite fascinating about it is you have to take a ferry across, but there are no vehicles, no self-propelled vehicles are allowed there. Only horses, only bicycles, that sort of thing. No motor vehicles. So that is kind of cool. The logo that they used at the beginning is the Grand Hotel logo today, or at least it was at the time I was there, so maybe that's back in time anymore. I thought that was pretty cool. One of the things that kind of jarred me out of it, though, was it looks like they had the green astroturf everywhere that you look to probably hide cracks or protect the probably wood underneath, the teak wood or whatever that they use. And so it had kind of, at the time this movie came out, it does have a 1980s sensibility, even though they go back in time. So those parts kind of interfered a bit. I mentioned earlier, I thought the sensibilities of the film were excellent. It gave us kind of that wonderful look and feel to it. Of course, the hotel is over 100 years old and it has everything going for it in the process, which I think is fantastic. I really love that, and having experienced it firsthand, I thought that was great. The town, which they never show in the film, also has that same sensibility to it. It is going back in time, and I think that's sort of the romantic thing about it as well. It's a location. You can kind of think your way back that way. I'm not sure exactly what Richard Matheson's original intent was, whether he did the Mackinac Island. Maybe he had. I don't know. I'll do some more research on it just for fun to see. But overall, I think it kind of works. It worked for me. It's one of those dumb films that you kind of love. And for me, it worked, and it didn't have a sensibility to it that expanded in a way that worked for me. I guess I can't. Others disagree, and that's fine. It's fine. This is one of those. I have a tendency sometimes with films that the 3-star films end up being 4 stars for me, and the 4-star films end up being 3-star films. That almost seems almost normal in a lot of ways. So just kind of out there, I guess. Okay, I guess that's it. I got nothing else to say about the film. But I'll watch it again. KE5ICX.
Okay, KI5SKX. Go ahead.
I just thought it was interesting. I was reading through the Wikipedia page, and between Universal Studios apparently favoring the Blues Brothers, which came out in the same week, and an actor's strike, seemed to do all right. And also, Ms. Brenda, I want to make sure that you had my call sign down okay. It's Kilo India 5, Foxtrot Kilo Sierra, and back to you.
Oh, did I get your call wrong? I'm sorry, would you do it again phonetically, please?
Yes, ma'am. It's Foxtrot, or, excuse me, correction. Kilo India 5, Foxtrot Kilo Sierra.
Oh, I apologize. KI5FKS. I thought it was S Sierra Kilo Sierra. My apologies. Okay, next, KG5BZW.
Hi, this is KG5BZW. Well, not much else to say. I do think the time travel aspect in terms of going back to 1912, I thought that was really fantastic. I will say it did win some awards, not the big ones. It was nominated for Best Costume Design in the Academy Awards and Best Original Score in the Golden Globes, but and it did win a few in some like the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films. So I think that was probably some of the stuff. What it won there, Best Fantasy Film. Well, I don't know the other fantasy films. Best Music, Best Costumes. Yeah, I'll grant that. It did a fine job there, and just the setting. I don't know if they could have chosen a better hotel. I mean, there might be better hotels out there for that kind of thing, or not. I guess I got a place in my heart for old places that still, rustic places that still look livable. I was going to comment more on the palette and all of the film, but I'm not sure. It would have been kind of random stuff that probably wasn't really. I don't know. The visual aspects of this film, I was really fine with. Just the other things I've already mentioned. Anyway, KG5 today.
Well, I don't really have anything else to say, but I have a burning question. KE5ICX, what are we looking at next week?
Thought you'd never ask. Well, I knew you were going to ask sooner or later. We're going back to the 1950s again. It's been a while. We've been a couple of months without doing a 1950-ish film. Red Planet Mars from 1952. It's over on YouTube. It's got over 1,496,050 views, and it's got rave reviews. So really, it does have rave reviews. I don't think I've ever seen this film. So that's it. Red Planet Mars, 1952, next week. This is KE5ICS.
It has Peter Graves in it. Yay. Before he got to be famous, he made some fine films like this. Okay, thanks for everybody who participated. I think we're going to call it quits. It's midnight, so this is WB5OZL Clear.
KE5ICX and 5BB.
E5ICX, WT9B.
My goodness, I did something wrong. W9B, not right. N5BB, go ahead.
We're piling up on you, Tom. You do realize, I know that you're engrossed with the fact that it was made at that particular location in Michigan. You do realize, of course, that the original story was set at a hotel that Richard Matheson visited in Nevada, and there were all these photos of an actress who played there at that hotel, and he moved, for the movie, they moved the location from Nevada to Michigan, and they moved the time about 5 years. But a lot of the other details were just modified versions of what Richard Matheson saw historically there with that actress. And she had played in a J.M. Barrie film there, the guy that did the Peter Pan. Anyway, let you go. N5BB clear.
Oh, fine. Ruin it for me, Bill. Okay. Well, this isn't a net, but I'll go ahead, Michael. WT9V, go ahead.
I just wanted to say to everybody that might still be on the frequency that the fact that you did not describe it as a fine film makes me feel a little bit more safe at this point.
Time is 12:05 a.m.
I gotta tell you something. A lot of times, I always ask people what they want to watch and what they want to do and all that, and sometimes I get films, and I go ahead and put them on the list. All right, and that's on the what the heck is it? The Facebook page, and there's a document in there with the links and everything else. So somebody has something that hasn't been watched or whatever, I put it on there. But a lot of the films, including Red Planet Mars, I've never seen. I just found it and I checked the comments or whatever, and sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. And I just put it on there, and I'm watching it for the first time with all of you. So I read the storyline and I go, okay, well, this one's a little flaky, but we'll go ahead and watch it. So that's what happens.
W5FC.
We're all a little flaky.
I'm sure that you do that, and you're completely blameless for the most part. It's just that, whenever you describe something as a fine film, I just kind of know to, fasten my seatbelt and keep my arms and hands inside the car at all times when it's moving for my own protection, and maybe add a 2nd crash helmet.
I have to stop using the phrase fine film? Maybe that's the thing we have to do. I'm not sure. If I say it's a not so fine film, does that make it better?
Oh, and Tom speak, it just might very well do so, yes. I mean, it's not that I'm trying to get you to stop saying that. It's just, like I said, it's warning there be dragons ahead kind of thing.
All right, how about this? How about we give it a rating? If it's, I don't know, a reasonable film, it gets 2 avocado refrigerators. If it is a better film, it gets 3 Harvest Gold 5-quart pots. How's that?
If it's a fine film, what does it get?
Cause brain damage. Do not operate heavy equipment while watching the film.
Like that. That's good. I mean, because there were a couple of them, like that one that should have been, there was that mutilated Isaac Asimov one, that the name of which I have purged from my brain, that definitely was a fine film.
Hey, Tom. I'm looking at the synopsis for Red Planet Mars. Have we seen this already? Somehow I've read this synopsis before. And Epic Snoxy claims he was duping the Americans. It involves, interesting. I don't know. I've read this synopsis before.
Debbie, hello, ZL.
That anymore. Go ahead.
I know. I get confused. I'm thinking the same thing Bill is thinking. A guy had this closet full of radios, and he was talking to Mars in secret. And we all yell, "It's him!" So it rings a bell, but that's okay. We can watch it again, and this was so long ago that I think most of our group were not here for this. And as an aside, talking about ham radio in the movies, if anybody watches the new Stranger Things episodes, this is the worst treatment of ham radio I've ever seen in movies or TV. WB50ZL.
Spoilers!
It's been an ongoing thing since season 1. Ham radio is just butchered, and it continues to be butchered. They never get anything right.
No, in all fairness, it is TV, and they butcher everything. If you're a computer person, anytime you see a computer on TV, it makes you cringe. If you're a medical person, anytime you see anything medical on TV, it makes you cringe.
I'm glancing through the movie Red Planet Mars, and I have not seen it. So I must have read the description. So I bet you, Tom, that somewhere in the last few weeks, you mentioned several films, and we went and looked at the synopsis of these different films. That must be the situation. This one somehow involves religion and the Soviet Union, and it's kind of a weird movie, I think. Anyway, see ya. Inside BB Clear.
EBB. So while y'all have been talking about Afterglow movies, I have conceptualized that time travel technology fundamentally involves velocity factor, multipath, divergence, and convergence. Let's build it. W5EBB.
Be easier than that interocitor. That darn thing was really hard to build. It's Heathkit on top of Heathkit, KE5ICX.
Well, Tom, you need a retroencabulator to make it work. Birefringence. Look that up. Birefringence. There's a lot of exciting things, David. Let you guys go. N5BB is clear.
Are you sure you don't need a turbo retroencabulator? Or maybe it's just a turbo encabulator. I'm confused now.
It depends on which one you look at. That's true. It depends on which one. There were several different versions of it by Rockwell International. Rockwell International, which is essentially gone now. N5BB is really clear.
Interocitor, is that right?
Here's the interocitor.
Thanks. I hate to be one to rediscover the wheel, but, you know, there's some glory even in that. W5EBB. Clear.
Somebody has to rediscover the wheel, and I don't have enough time this week.
All good. It's all good. Da-da-da-da-da. Oh, can't sing on the radio, can we? Okay, kids. See you next week. Bye-bye and bye-bonds. This is KU5ICX. I'm clear.
Goodbye, Dad. See you later. WT9V.
Hey, Tom, we'll have to build an interocitor at one of the Saturday build sessions. N5BB. You did a video on how to build one. This is N5BB clear.
You keep saying that if you keep coming back.
That was version 0, 1, and 2 of build, respectively. W5EBB.
Bill, time traveling again tonight. WT9V.
Has a doppelganger. It's the other guy with the same call sign.
And one bill kind of scares me a little bit. WT9V.
KE5ICX.
W5FC.
Yes. WT9V.
All clear earlier?
That was an alternate timeline, sir.
And Mars has a child in a clown suit, so that's pretty scary. WV5OZL, and I am now clear.
About that.
Lie. There was life on SETI Alpha 5.
Everybody else left. All right. Good night, all. WT9V.
Michael, have a good evening. I will be clear now to KE5ICX. I'm clear, really. I'm clear. Crystal. Bye.
I don't know. I think I can see right through you, WT9V.